Yeah. Hey guys, thanks for joining the Orion kickoff call today. Very excited to have you part of this program that we're starting this month. I wanted to do a quick introduction about myself and Eddie, who's the project manager on this call. And there's a few things that I'd like to go through. I see more viewers are joining, so that's really cool. What I'll do is I'll do a quick introduction about what QLC is and my background, and then I have a quick deck that I'll walk through with everyone here. For those who aren't on the call, I'll be recording this video so you can rewatch it after. And on top of that, we'll be sharing the deck that I've put together. So a bit about me. So I'm Will, the co-founder of QLC. I graduated from UNSW a few years back, studying commerce law. Since then, I've done a lot of job hopping. I've moved across accounting to banking to law to finance, and then now I found myself in tech, based in Singapore. So I moved over about a year ago, running this startup. The cool thing about what we're doing now, it's essentially helping people just like us. QLC stands for Quarter Life Crisis, and we're trying to help solve people's quarter life crisis, whether it's career or lifestyle change. It's essentially giving you a chance to navigate different options through short-term projects and learnings on the side. So Eddie's with me as well. He's the project manager, so he looks after all the projects available that we run on a weekly basis. We're a tech company, so even though we're based in Singapore, we actually work with a lot of candidates all over the world. And this particular project partnership with UNSW is really exciting because we're essentially going to be working with the business school, a lot of master students, people from all different geographies, as well as different studies as well. Eddie, why don't you give a quick shout out introduction of who you are?
Hey guys, I'm Eddie, the project manager. So basically I'm here to facilitate your experience with Orion. If you need help with any logistics or any task related work, you can just approach me on Slack, or you should have my email too. Back to you, Will.
Cool. So I guess just a bit of housekeeping, guys. On the left-hand side, there's a Q&A section. What you can do if you have a question, just flick in a question. I'll be able to answer it, and I'll be able to tick that off. So what I'll do now is I'll share screen with the deck that I wanted to go through. And if you have any questions, again, just let me know. Cool. So I'm just starting the screen share now. So, I mean, we've already sort of explained to you about my background, Eddie's background, but also what QLC is as a business. But why did you guys sign up to Orion? Why are we even working with UNSW on the Orion initiative? primarily the problem that we're trying to solve with QLC is helping millennials, mostly working professionals, switch careers. Those who have done a few years, working in their banking or law or engineering or doctor jobs. But, taking that leap of faith is actually really scary, or making that switch is even scarier because you may or may not know what's around the corner, not knowing the right opportunity costs, not knowing if you have the right skills. And so what we're doing now is giving people a chance to sample it through moonlighting gigs. It's risk-free. You get to learn about a new industry, get your foot in the door. And the reason why we've partnered with UNSW is because we've been, apart from being UNSW students, we've actually been approached by a few different societies who either have a focus on digital innovation or career opportunities in Australia. So the type of businesses that we've already assigned you to are mostly early stage startups across Southeast Asia. And the reason why we run these type of projects are twofold. Firstly, on the startup angle, you really get the chance of building something from the ground up. Learning the hard skills, learning about digital practices, learning about the tips and tricks to operationally run a business. And so the type of skills and tasks that we're going to be teaching you over the next 6 weeks, and the type of tasks that you're going to be doing for the business will be new age roles. So it could be a combination of helping them source more businesses in the business to consumer space, helping find partnerships for large enterprises, looking at digital marketing, so social mediums, looking at finding influencers, finding partners in that space as well. All these different skills, all these different insights are actually trending in the industry right now. And the reason why we think it's really important for you to focus on that is because traditional corporate jobs are obviously shrinking, but also the type of skills that you learn are very vertical focused. So, my background, I started off in law, and my first few months or first few years working in the corporate space, you end up going down a very vertical corporate ladder. But what I realized is switching out of that is even harder because you personally think that you're stuck in that mindset and you feel as though the skills aren't right. And so what we're trying to do is provide you a broad range of marketing, data analysis, business development skills that you can either take back to your own business or actually apply it to today's world in anything that you want to do. And the reason why we're focusing on Asia is obviously Australia has a large tie to the Asian markets, but on top of that, there's actually a really huge boom in opportunities at the moment. So from a technology perspective, it's huge because there's over 600 million people that are essentially in your grasp. In Australia itself, it's a very small market. But for you to be able to tap into 3.7 billion mobile users or over 1.4 billion internet users, that's a huge chunk for you to figure out different type of problems that you can solve. And the reason why we're based in Southeast Asia is for that reason. Not only are we trying to bridge the Western markets to Southeast Asia, but there's actually a lot of really interesting and really innovative things that you can do to solve real problems. We have a lot of projects in the education space in India. We have the healthcare projects in Indonesia. There's a lot of entrepreneurship communities, a lot of digital nomads who are traveling around the world. And we're giving you a chance to not only connect with people just like yourself around the world, but actually work and figure out what it's like to build a business out of Asia. And again, focusing back on the point of vertical careers versus horizontal skill sets, vertical career paths is quite traditional in my opinion, because statistically speaking, us millennials between early 20s to mid 30s, we're going to be switching careers quite often. Statistically speaking, it's about 1 to 2 years every two. So we're going to be switching careers every 1 to 2 years. That's actually really scary because you might be studying or committing yourself to a career in finance, but in 2 years' time, you're actually going to be looking at other things. And what we're trying to do is prepare you for that. We're going to prepare you the right skills, the right insights, and essentially that right access to not only build on your vertical careers, but actually navigate horizontally. So that's teaching you the right skills, teaching you other different tips and tricks to learn new opportunities and meet new people. Think about what we're doing as LinkedIn, but not for old people. That's what our CTO likes to call it. And the reason why we say that is LinkedIn was traditionally built for working professionals in a particular industry. When they started off, you'd be inviting people to your PwC or your CBA networks, but in reality, it's actually very different now. You're connecting to your friends, your colleagues, your second degree networks across all different industries, across all different geographies. And what we're trying to do is make that easier, not only from a skills development perspective, but a networking perspective as well. So the exciting thing about doing this project now, or working with your QLC, with your team, as well as your your fellow colleagues at the startup, is you're going to be leveraging your own skills, your own experiences, and you're going to be able to bounce ideas in a real startup environment. This is not a university assignment, so the way that we try to structure it is we're trying to throw you into the deep end. So you're really going to learn how to keep a business afloat and make a business succeed. Again, we're teaching the tricks, the hacks that us as as recent startup founders, previous corporate individuals have moved on, and we're going to try to provide the same skills that we've taught you or that we've learned ourselves. So let's talk about the importance of new age skills. So again, the type of learnings and the development that we want to provide for you is very focused on the digital age. I mean, I'm sure everyone uses some sort of digital marketing in their day-to-day life. You're scrolling through your Huffington Post, out your friends and reading articles on Facebook. You're following influencers on Twitter. But what does that actually mean, and how does it actually compare to what you're doing for your real career? Back when I was studying commerce, you end up doing all this theoretical stuff, but at the end of the day, you actually learn a lot more when you're executing, and even more importantly, when you're executing in the right tasks and in the right company of your mentors of the business. And so the way that we've paired you is not only based on what you're studying, but also what you're trying to learn. So in one of the fields that we asked you to put in was, what was your dream career and what are the type of skills that you want to build? And so we essentially put you with 10 really interesting businesses all across the healthcare space, the engineering space, the education space. And these are really innovative companies that are blooming and growing very quickly. They're not only looking for their first hires, but they're looking for the right people, the right minds, and the right people with a hustle mentality to help them get shit done, essentially. These roles are across data analytics, design, marketing, technology. And our mantra is, you don't need to be a specialist. You don't need to have the learnings. You don't need to have the background or the experience to do this work. Because if you had that mindset, or if I had that mindset, I'd be stuck being a paralegal for my law firm about 5 years back. What we're trying to do is teach you new insights, give you the skills to learn a new business, and essentially, hopefully, give you the confidence to do what we're doing, travel around the world, meet really cool people and do really interesting stuff. So, I mean, I'm not going to go into too much detail about breaking the type of roles, but what we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is releasing new information and new coursework. So I'm sure everyone, or most of you, have already logged into our projects.qlc account. That's where we're going to be constantly updating you with the announcements about the startups, who's going to be on your team, the check-in dates, and the type of learnings, readings, videos, and tasks that you're going to be doing. Again, these are group exercises, so really utilize the friends and colleagues that you've asked to join this project, but also work with Eddie and myself. We're here to provide the mentorship. Each week, not only will you get tasks, but we provide weekly mentorship sessions where we bring in professionals, startup experts, entrepreneurs to really give you the guidance and give you the mindset and insight to elevate the skills. My dream, 3 years ago, of what my dream career switched, a year in. And now I'm in Singapore, always looking for the next thing. We want to give you the confidence and the skills to be able to figure that out for yourself as well. Does anyone have any questions yet? On the left-hand side again, you can post a question. So what I'll do is I'm going to keep going with the slide deck. It's quite brief, but if you guys have any questions, again, pop it up, and we'll either Ed or I will follow up with that. Cool. So this is, one of the interesting things about working with QLC is you're working with early stage startups that have a big vision, that have large potential. These aren't ideas that Joe Blow randomly popped up. These are carefully curated, hand selected businesses that we've picked, and these are based on their vision, based on their skill set, but based on their financial and personal backing. The reason why we've put these 4 startups, Airbnb, Groupon, and GoPro, and Zappos, is because they all started off with really interesting stories. Very, very strong co-founders with the right hustle, not really knowing what the hell they were doing, but somehow they figured out their way to, hustle their way into what they're doing now. For us, it's the same thing. At QLC, we started off as a furniture business. So I'm not sure if you guys, for those who've actually met me in the past, I actually started off with a furniture business called Couchello. And that was my first entry into the startup space. I ended up, putting money into developing an app. That app actually got accepted into an accelerator or startup bootcamp in Singapore. But that whole story, learning how to hustle, staying afloat, figuring out whether or not, my corporate job was what I wanted to do versus taking that leap of faith to work on a project that I didn't even know would succeed. These stories are are very similar to any startup founder that you meet, but more importantly, the startups that we've assigned to you. So what I'll be doing, what I can share with you after this is on Slack, the list of candidates who are enrolled. Some of you have already, seen your team members, but what you might know is each project or each business has a few concurrent projects running in parallel. So some people with skills in design might be working on a design project, but if you're working on a business development, it's always a business development project. It's always good to bounce ideas, work together to solve each other's problems. So I mean, interesting thought on, interesting focus on, interesting topic on startup stories. But I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of the Airbnb, Groupon, Zappos, GoPro stories. Groupon was, when it first started, it was really interesting because they didn't, how did they become a billion-dollar giant overnight? They didn't. What they ended up starting off with was a pizza order. And the founder, what he did was he sent an email to a few of his colleagues and asked, hey, is anyone interested in buying 2-for-1 pizzas? If I get 10 orders or 10 responses by email, I'll go and find a pizzeria and order the pizzas. And that's what he actually did. He ended up getting about 20 orders, going to a local pizzeria, buying the pizzas and delivering it. And slowly, as he added on, different type of offerings, it actually opened up to a whole new market. And that's where he started building the platform. It was not just, building a website or, copying a business idea. It was starting off with, a simple question or simple problem and testing out the market. Same thing with the Zappos story. So the Zappos, before it became such a huge mammoth, what they started off doing was taking photos of shoes. So, they started being the distribution of black business shoes. And what ended up happening was they put on their website photos of shoes that they didn't have in inventory. And not only until they got orders, that people paid for the orders, then the founder would go purchase the product and then deliver it, and essentially understand the whole end-to-end operations of what people are looking for, what people are essentially selling, and what people are willing to pay a premium for. The reason why I'm pointing out those 2 stories in particular is right now the way that you're working, or the way that we'll teach how to work, is very different to what you've learned in business school, or what you've learned in your commerce or master of finance classes. It's essentially learning you the nitty-gritty shit that you need to do to get stuff done in the most lean manner. And I'll say that again, like the lean methodology of building a business is so critical, because not only is it important to manage your time, manage your finances, but also manage how many, different options you can to, find out the problem that you're solving. And the reason why that's important, because, at the end of the day, when you're working for an early stage startup, or if you're doing your own startup, it's really important to be able to test iteratively, figure out how to, optimize particular tests and then focus on that particular test. Same thing for QLC. The way that we started, we interviewed a lot of candidates, not knowing that short-term projects was going to be our product. We didn't go to, our friends and say, hey, I know that you're not happy with your job. You're always telling us how much you hate it over Friday night drinks. Can we, find you a short-term gig with a startup in Asia? It didn't start off like that. The whole point of this discovery process, asking questions, asking them what their biggest pain point was actually figuring out what they really wanted. And the 3 key points that we ended up finding was, the biggest pain points of them not leaving their jobs was financial security. They might have had a mortgage, they might have had, their studies, they might have, a high-paying corporate job. Secondly, not knowing if they have the right skills. So a lot of our initial customers were, really high executives, but, they felt as though they were either taking a step back or really scared of taking that leap of faith, because moving to a new industry means leaving everything behind. And finally, not knowing the right people. You've built your network, you've built your community of mentors, of, vertical industry advisors, but, how do you suddenly switch careers? It's really scary, and that's how a lot of people get stuck. We're trying to, help the millennial generation figure out and learn how to not get stuck in that rut. So we have a question from Daniel. So I'll just repeat the question. So it goes, hey, Will, what is the common scenario you see with people who graduated a project through QLC? Does it often happen that people join the startup they took the QLC mediated internship at? And that question, to answer that question, is actually yes, Daniel. The common scenario that someone graduates a project is that they continue on with the project, either in a part-time or full-time manner. What we're trying to do is not give you a fish, we're not giving you a job, but we're teaching you the skills on how to find the job and how to find the industry. Most of our customers are, either looking for their next role or are looking to taste test their next role. So for the former, looking for the next role, it's really, a really quick and dirty chance for you to figure out if that industry or that type of company is right for you. But majority of our people are still, figuring that out. That's why you're at uni. That's why you're, doing your graduate programs that give you 4 or 5 rotations. And so the whole point of our mantra and what we're trying to teach you is, what's the taste test feeling like? What's the skills that you need to build? What's the network that you need to create? And so most of our candidates, they end up staying on as alumni. They either mentor other students or they join other projects. Think of us as an online store for different career and lifestyle opportunities. Thanks for asking that question, Daniel. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, I'll just continue on. Cool. So one of the stories that always, so the first part of the startup success story is a group on the Zappos, and the same thing with GoPro. Just a quick note on GoPro. They, the founder was a very big sports fanatic, and he ended up, finding one of his first ambassadors in Southeast Asia, and that ambassador was an avid skier, avid snowboarder, avid cross bike rider. And that person, the pain point that he was feeling was obviously, he wanted to capture those moments, but existing cameras did not have the quality, it didn't have the intensity, and it didn't have the durability. And so the GoPro founder would work with him one-on-one to really understand how to improve his prototype. I actually watched a video earlier today, and it was one of those infomercials that the GoPro, the first infomercials that GoPro was selling at, and they were selling at $25 per pop. or less. And the funny thing is, like, it really starts with understanding your customer. It really starts with understanding the pain point that you're solving. So it's really critical when you're working with your startup to understand, what problem are they solving? What type of, demographic are they targeting? Because it's not just about copying an idea from the US and applying it to Australian or, the Singaporean markets. It's really about understanding the business through your customer. The key problem that a lot of first-time entrepreneurs, including myself, make is you see, really sexy business that you want to, try to iterate or flourish in your own country, but the demographics, the industry appetite, the type of people that you need to work with are completely different. And so what I want you to bear in mind with is when you're working or spending the next 6 weeks learning about how to deal with customers or how to market to the customers, really think in the foot of what your customers want. Because at the end of the day, having that one conversation, a few of you have already, had a chat to speak with me over Skype. It's really, talking to your customers and understanding what their pain points are, how you can solve it. Because if you ask the same question 5 times, 50 times, 500 times, and they keep, putting in that type of answer for you, it actually makes it very defensible for you to go back to the market and say, I've spoken to 500 customers, and here is, the product or solution that I'm offering. So Eric just asked a question, what's the expected commitment we need to put into this project every week? So Eric, the typical candidate that comes to our projects are full-time working professionals. So these are 9 to 7 working professionals with, doing a QSC project on the side. And the reason why we've, reduced the workload is obviously because y'all studying. I've heard that some of you have already, started exams or about to start exams in mid to late November, but the expected time commitment is about 5 to 10 hours per week. What we've done is provide a combination of online learnings and readings that we'll send through, but also tasks that we expect you and the team to work on. This is essentially giving you a chance to not only continue with your studies or have your full-time job, but actually do something on the side. And the whole point of that is, switching careers shouldn't mean taking that 3-month sabbatical or taking time off or waiting until the end of the year to do that summer internship. We want to give you guys instant access to really cool opportunities, but also manage the workload that you can have. So Sanjeev also asked a question, can you elaborate a bit more on lean startups? What is the most important skills you need to develop to become an entrepreneur? So really cool question, because that's what we're going to be teaching in week 1, Sanjeev. But high level, the whole point of lean startup is not wasting time and wasting resources, because the traditional way of doing a business, like setting up a manufacturing company or setting up a grocery store or setting up a restaurant business, means you need to save cash, save $50,000, $100,000 to have the inventory, to have the staff. But the beautiful thing about technology and technology in startups today is you can essentially build a business overnight with $0. And what we can do is provide you the skills and insights to do that. The skills that you need to learn is being open and really learning, like being able to hustle, because you might have your career right now, you're thinking about getting into the McKinseys, Bain, BCG, but the type of practices, methodologies that we use are very similar. The only difference is the execution, it will be a lot more critical. Rather than doing high level strategic reviews, you're actually going to be able to implement them for the business and reap the results, learn how to tweak the results. So the concept of lean startups is essentially providing these methods to be able to do the right testing, find the right customers quickly, do the right marketing on a very low budget, but also measure the results effectively. Same thing with the startups that you've been partnering. They've been trying to grow the business, month on month, week on week, but they're also, hustling and figuring out the tips and tricks to make their business big. And with your support, with your learnings, we can, provide you the right guidance to help them do the same. So, I mean, the three things that you need to remember for lean startups, it's build, test, iterate. Build, test, iterate. Those are the, three core skills that we're going to teach how to do. How to build, something that customers can provide feedback on. Testing, giving your customers measurable metrics for you to test and figure out, which parts to improve and, which parts to discard. And thirdly, iterate, how to improve your build and re-implement it very quickly. So just going back to the interesting startup stories, but great question, guys. Thanks for sending that through. Airbnb, before it became a unicorn, the phrase unicorn means $1 billion business. Most of you probably wouldn't have heard a lot of their failure stories. So when they first launched, it was based off the pain point that they couldn't pay rent. And the whole concept was, seeing whether or not someone would pay to sleep on their couch. So that's, how they started off. And slowly they found a few design events, I believe in Chicago, and they opened up, their place to a lot of reporters and designers to come in and stay at their place. And that's how they started off, with their first couple of customers. A year into that, they actually almost went broke. And the reason why is because their idea was so innovative, they needed the time to really figure out how to market and get the right message to thousands, hundreds of thousands of customers. So they actually went through a complete drought where they, really needed to figure their shit out. And so one hustle story that I love sharing is their Cheerios resale story. So what they ended up doing during the Barack Obama campaign is they pre-ordered a few hundred boxes of cereal, Cheerio cereal, and they printed, their own. They designed and printed their own Obama design. There's really cool photos of them, opening up a cereal box, putting a layer of Obama Cheerio designs, and then selling it at a premium. And that made, they sold, a few hundred boxes over the summer, and that gave them $30,000 in seed funding. And that whole point, the whole point of sharing that story is, if you're doing your own thing or you're thinking about doing your own thing, hustling is really important. It's great to have a very large vision about how you can save the world or how you can make $1 billion company. But what you're going to realize and what you're going to really learn is the ability to hustle and learn from each other about how to figure things out when your back is against the wall. Because, it's really easy to, let's say you're working in a corporate company, it's really easy to leave work on a Friday night and not think about it over the weekend. But, if you're doing a startup, you're constantly thinking about how you can, build your brand name. How can you make a name out of yourself? And to do that, it's really figuring out the right hustles. Same thing as my whole team. You know what? We got bounced around to different jobs. We moved to different countries. We're still, figuring out how to survive as a company and learning the skills how to survive as a company. And the same thing as you. That's going to be really critical for you to learn, because this is something that they don't teach at school. This is something that they don't teach in class. They definitely don't teach it in your corporate job. So be aware of that. So that provides, that's essentially a quick and dirty summary of, today's presentation. But I actually wanted to, talk a bit about housekeeping over the next couple of weeks. So Eddie would have already sent through Slack invites. So Slack is our team communication channel. And we've also started scheduling in meeting invites with the business. So what I'll do is I'll hand it over to Eddie to walk through what you're expected to do and what we need from you over the next couple of weeks.
Hey guys, so just a quick update. So currently, most of you should have been onboarded onto Slack right now. So I'm creating private groups for you to meet up with your teammates, and over the next couple of days, I'll be inviting the business co-founders or contact person to be joining those private groups. Your next point of contact with the business will be on Sunday, mostly for most teams, except for a couple of teams, we'll have your check-in on Mondays. So this, your first kickoff call will be mostly about you getting to know the co-founder, getting to know your teammates, and also to get kind of a gauge on what's to be expected over the next 6 weeks in terms of your task and deliverables. A bit more on the housekeeping I would like to cover is there are 3 different kind of video check-ins that we do on KLC. So the first one is between you and the business, that we just label it as business meetings for now. The second part is your weekly fireside sessions that will be held by Will most of the time, with an occasional special guest invited onto the chat to share about their experience or about the expertise. And lastly, your personal check-ins that will be with me. So I'm going to share my calendar with you guys shortly on Slack, and you can actually start booking in time with me to to get my opinion or me and my team's opinion on your deliverables. Let's say, for example, if you have a specific question in regards to Facebook advertising, what's good and what's not, you can actually book like 30 minutes time with me, and we can do a quick run through with you. So I will be available on every day, sadly and happily. But yeah, just give me like 12-hour heads up if it's possible. If it's urgent, I'm still available if you guys really need me, I guess. Yeah, I think that's about it. Well, clarify anything in regards to housekeeping?
No, not from your end, but I guess, Eddie and I will be your point of contact over the next couple of weeks. The important thing is to make sure you're transparent and that you set up time to work with your team. This is a really fresh way on how, to run global projects. Working with your business, they're obviously going to be, very busy, very active, and, always, always open to new ideas. So for you to come in, make that extra effort, being a bit more innovative with the way that you do things is actually really beneficial. We'll also obviously, provide all the learnings and all the trainings. Get excited about, meeting your startup on Sunday. Be, open to what type of tasks that you do, because at the end of the day, you don't know where it will lead. And on top of that, make sure that you really try to understand the skills that you have and how you can bounce it off with your team. So we have another question from Trong. So the question is, say your friends have a good idea that you think it would be worth doing. Can you point out some channels that we can present our conceptual idea and get feedback from people apart from Facebook? So what we can do is, what we already have is 6 weeks worth of training that provide marketing, channel finding, and testing for you to do that, Trong. So it's not, if you want to look at different type of channels, that's really trying to learn what it's like with your business. But again, we have a lot of materials and a lot of resources that we can work with you personally, as well as in the project to get that done. We can take that question offline if you have more questions. You have me on Slack, so we can keep talking about that. Any other questions, guys? Oh, yeah. So, guys, for those who don't have a LinkedIn profile, please get that set up, because what we're doing with, most of you have already set up a LinkedIn profile or have already listed your LinkedIn and Skype details. What we need you to do is update your LinkedIn profile on qlc.io. So there'll be 2 different types of logins. 2 different types of logins. One is on the project side. That's where you'll be able to access all your project materials. But if you log into the QLC platform, you'll be able to update your LinkedIn and update your Skype details. And the reason why we need that information is because you're going to be presenting your LinkedIn to other candidates so they can understand your profile and understand where you can help, but also the businesses will be able to contact you via Skype or via LinkedIn. So that's actually a key action that Eddie will probably follow up with over the next couple of days to make sure you do that. What we've been doing to date is actually refining, making sure that everyone's in the right project and making sure before the kickoff date on Sunday with the business that they know a bit more about yourself. So again, thanks so much for sending in the applications. Are there any last questions? If not, we can take it offline, and you can talk to me privately or over Slack. Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, guys. I'm very excited to work with you. Again, I think Saturday and Sunday will be the initial kickoff meetings with your business. So make sure you're prepared, make sure you know a bit about what they're doing and what they're looking out for, but also start looking at who you're going to be working with, because those are the potential entrepreneur or future co-founders that you might be starting a business together. But again, thanks for joining today's call. I'm very excited to work with you, and yeah, have a good night. One final question: what books would you recommend to my 21-year-old self? So if you're my 21-year-old self, I was doing law books. I was reading law, foundations of law and tort. So I would not recommend myself reading that. But what we already do have is a list of readings, Jason, that we can send through, and we'll be constantly curating materials. We also have a database of startup books that we're going to be sharing with you. That's part of joining the QRC project. But yeah, if that's everything, I'm going to close the call and let's talk again over the next couple of days. Thanks so much, guys.